Welcome back to another episode of ASMR Late Night Baking. The sun has gone down. I have deep cleaned my kitchen, and it is time that I film another episode for you guys. Tonight we are making classic, old school, southern style white bread. Is this the best bread out there? Probably not. Is this the quickest bread out there? Probably not. Is this the easiest bread? Probably not. But it's the bread I grew up with. It's the bread I have very fond memories of, and that makes it taste better than almost anything out there for me. So I am sharing that recipe tonight with you guys, and I sincerely hope you enjoy. So let's go ahead and get started, because this is gonna take just a little bit. So the first step of this recipe is super simple, but very important. We are baking this evening, so again, with baking you want to be very particular about your ingredients, especially when you make bread, or things might get a little weird. But again, if you make a mistake, you can always try again. Don't be too worried about it. This is supposed to be ASMR and relaxing, so I like to keep things very low stress for the cooking episodes. I have learned my lesson from the last episode, and I have pre-measured everything. The first step, we are going to let our yeast for the bread start to activate and grow, because this is what makes your bread rise, is this yeast. And again, like last time, I'm pretending like I know everything for the sake of the tutorial. I'm definitely not an expert, so yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. But the first thing we are going to do, we are going to put 2.5 cups of lukewarm water into a large mixing bowl. Some recipes will say that you need a large bowl, when really, a medium one would do. For this recipe, go ahead and use a large bowl. So we're going to put 2.5 cups of lukewarm water in there. You also might be saying to yourself, what is lukewarm, really? I would say it's supposed to be not too hot, not too cold. It's about that temperature where if you're running your hand under the water, you go, this is nice. It's like a suspiciously warm lake temperature. So into that lukewarm water, we want to put 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar. And we also want to put 2 packages of yeast. So I'll go ahead and open those with my scissors. 2 packages. Really, the recipe says 1 or 2, but to make sure our bread rises quite nicely, we are going to put 2. Open this other one up. The room smells nice and yeasty. And we are going to take our bread spoon. It's important that your bread spoon has a lot of vibes. This bread spoon has been in my family for a long time, a while, so this is what I use specifically and only for bread. So we're gonna go ahead and stir this up. The temperature of the water as well as the sugar is going to help that yeast start to activate. Now stir this up. Try to get this yeast on the sides. All these clumps kind of incorporated. It's going to get a little cloudy. That's okay. And there we go. We have our first step all done. So we are going to leave this and let that yeast start to eat up that sugar, get reawakened by the warm water. We're going to leave this for about 10 minutes, and you'll see whenever we come back to it, there are going to be some pretty significant changes. In the meantime, I am going to move this over to the counter behind me. In the meantime, you're going to go ahead and get this surface ready for the next step. Really, we are going to just get ready for the next step. So the next part of our bread making, after that yeast is activated, we are going to be incorporating the flour, a little bit more sugar, some salt, and one other special ingredient that you'll see. But right after we incorporate those, you move straight into kneading the dough. And if you measure out your flour 1 cup at a time while you are stirring / kneading your dough, it gets a little precarious because your hands are covered in bread dough, very sticky bread dough. So before we start that, we are actually going to measure out all of our flour, so it's just in a bowl and we have everything that we need and we're not reaching back into the bag. I've also gotten this baking mat, might be what it is called. If you are not a baker and you are trying this recipe out for the first time, maybe dipping your toes into the world of baking, congratulations, good luck. Don't be worried. You don't need one of these. Just give your counter a good wipe down, Clorox wipe, and you'll be good. And really lucky you, because you don't have to afterwards clean the baking mat. But the great thing about the baking mat is it does have these inch markers on the sides. So when, if you're working with something like a pie dough, a pizza dough, something that has, roll out 10 by 12 inches of dough, you have those measurements already right there for you. And you don't have to worry about your counter being super duper clean, but it is a pain to wash. So I'm going to very quickly measure everything out, and then we will check back in on our yeast. All right, we are back. The timer has gone off. It's been about 10 minutes, a little bit longer. And as you can see, we've got some beautiful action in our bowl. That is what you call action. The yeast is alive, feeding, thriving, exactly what we want, what we were looking for. It's a little bit hard to see in this camera, but there is a little ring where you can see the bloom of the yeast. This is perfect, exactly what we want. Now, this part is going to be a little bit tricky. So if you have any rings, take them off. If you have sleeves, roll them up. You're going to get your hands a little bit dirty here. So we are going to start adding the rest of our ingredients into our bread. So we have a 1/2 cup of sugar, as well as 1.5 teaspoons of salt. I have it all in the same little bowl right here. We have 7 to 8 cups of flour already pre-portioned over here, and we will be adding the flour cup by cup, so I have a cup measure in here as well. And the last ingredient, this is why they call it, it's where we get the southern from in this bread. Now, half of you, maybe less, already know what this is. The other half are very concerned. This is a jar of bacon fat. I used to keep it in a cup. The first time my husband saw me pouring it into a cup, he almost had a heart attack. It's funny because this sort of gives you a heart attack. But anyways, now I keep it in a jar because we make bacon so much. The cup was overflowing. But we are using a little bit of bacon fat in this recipe. So you're gonna want 2.5 tablespoons melted bacon fat. Make bacon, save the grease a couple times, or you might just be able to substitute some melted butter in there. Again, I'm not an expert, but this is how we've always done it, so that's how I'm gonna do it. So you have that melted down. And if you got a few little flecks of bacon in there, as this bowl does, that's nothing to worry about, and you might see those pop up again. So if you see little, orange, brown flecks, those are just little flecks of bacon. So let's go ahead and get adding again. Very important. Roll up your sleeves, take off any rings. We are going to go straight into kneading this dough. All right, so we're gonna start by adding our sugar and salt right in there. We are going to pour in our bacon fat. Beautiful. I'm gonna go ahead and give that a little stir on its own. It's already a little fizzy. Oh, and I forgot to mention, before we get our hands dirty, you do want to grab another large bowl, mine's back here, and grease this guy up. If you have Crisco, that's what my Nana would always use. I don't have Crisco, so I just took a can of Pam, sprayed the whole thing. You don't need to flour the inside. I don't think we would usually do that. Just grease it up so the dough comes out pretty easily later on after it rises. This is what our dough is going to rise in for the first rise. And you don't want to have to worry about that when your hands are all doughy. It's not very good. I've also got my baking mat out. I've got some flour out for when we start to knead. And we're gonna start adding our flour 1 cup at a time. So this recipe uses 7 to 8 cups of flour. You might end up needing 8. You might end up needing a little bit more than 8. You might end up needing only 6.5. Don't worry about it. You should be able to tell when you've got as much flour as you need. The dough will sort of stop absorbing the flour. It'll sort of, get to a point where it will stop incorporating it, and you'll be able to tell. And this is gonna get a little chunky, but we're not gonna worry about that. We're just gonna keep adding flour. That is cup number 2. All right. It smells like bacon. Is there a greater sign on earth that this is going to be good bread? We're going to add about another cup. and I can feel it starting to thicken already. And I think you should be able to hear it a little bit more. It's a little thicker. I'm gonna go ahead and add another cup. Just like this. Perfect. Gonna scrape the sides, and we are just at the point where everything is going to get very sticky and very scary. But don't worry, it's all gonna come together. We'll see. With baking, especially with bread, you just gotta have faith sometimes. Now it's very, very sticky, but we can still keep stirring. You don't have to dump it out quite yet. I believe this might have been cup 5. And we're almost at the point where I think we need to go ahead and dump it out. It's getting very hard to stir. We're not really stirring. We're sort of folding at this point. So I might take one more cup of flour in here and see how much I can stir that, and then we're gonna go ahead and dump it out and start the sort of kneading process. Put a little in here. And I say it gets a little scary because sometimes it's hard to believe that all the flour is in fact going to disappear into the dough, but I promise it will. You just gotta keep kneading. And we're right at that point where I think we need to go ahead and flip it out. It's kind of a sticky mass right now. We're gonna go ahead and flip this out onto a well-floured surface. So again, if you're new to baking, usually you have a nice pile of flour off to the corner, so you can just grab it with your fingers and sprinkle it down. This flour helps things not stick. You get that? Put it on your hands. And now the fun is going to start. So we're going to dump this out. To our surface. We're going to get all of this. Our bread spoon has done its job. It's incorporated its vibes. Get a little bit more of this out of the bowl. All of this dough out. See, it looks very scary right now. That's okay. It looks a little bit like a sea monster. Yeah, it's gonna be fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. All right, we can go ahead and set our large bowl number 1 off to the side. And we're gonna go ahead and incorporate the rest of this flour and start kneading. So look over your shoulder. It's 9:19. We're gonna want to knead for about 10 minutes. And we will incorporate the rest of this flour. So I'm gonna go ahead and put another cup right on top. Again, I'm not an expert. This is just how I do it. Now kneading with the spread, we're basically folding that flour in. See, it looks very scary. Move it a little. We're gonna fold, we're gonna flatten, and we're gonna fold, then we're gonna flatten. Fold, flat, fold, flat. As you can see, it's very, very sticky right now, but you'll be amazed at the end of this 10 minutes, it's gonna look like a completely new thing of dough. Fold and flat, fold and flat. All right, it is 9:29. We have been kneading for 10 minutes. Our dough ball is nice, smooth, not super sticky anymore. And we are ready to let this rise. So I sort of just flipped it over and shaped it into a nice little ball like that. This is about like a 17 or 8-inch ball. And I'm going to get our greased bowl. I'm a little tired from kneading. Gonna get our bowl. And we are just going to plop this down in there. Plop. And it does say turn the bowl or turn the dough to grease the top sides. So I guess we'll do that. We're just gonna flip it a little. I'm not gonna worry about it too much. Just gonna get a little of that Pam on there. There we go. Here it is in our bowl. And we are going to just cover this with a towel, put it someplace really warm, and we are going to check back in an hour and a half. So I will see you then. Welcome back, everyone. It has been approximately an hour and a half, and we have let our bread rise for the big reveal. Wow, look at that. So your bread should have doubled to maybe even tripled in size. It should be this big, happy loaf. The yeast has done its job. Put this towel over here. So now what we are going to do is we are going to divide up and shape this beautiful loaf and put it into the pans we are going to cook it into. So before we dump this out, we need to go ahead and get our pans ready. I have 2 loaf pans and I have 1 regular cake pan. Don't listen to this cake pan part. This is sort of my own experiment. I only have 2 loaf pans, so I'm seeing if I can just sort of make a circular piece of bread, but this is something that nobody else does but me, so don't listen to this part, maybe. But these two loaf pans, bread, loaf pan, pretty self-explanatory. This is typically what my family does. You can make this bread into the regular loaves, or we also like making them into dinner rolls. You just pinch off a little, put it in, probably a pan like this actually, and you just let them rise and bake them how you normally would, I believe. Yep, make them as you normally would. I checked the instructions. So this bread is going to make about 3 loaves, or 2 loaves in whatever other pan shape that you have. And we do need to grease up these pans. So what my family normally does, again, is we take some Crisco and we just grease Crisco up the whole inside of this pan. What I'm going to do, again, because I do not have any Crisco, is I'm going to take just this bottle of Pam, and I'm going to spray that on the loaf pans. Just going to aim this over here and just give it a little spray. I'm not too worried about it. Not too worried. There we go. I guess I should set these off to the side, so we won't need them quite yet. All right. Waft the Pam away from all the recording things. So now we are going to dive into this bread loaf. So let me get some flour on my hands. Perfect. This will be just a little bit sticky, but it's gonna be okay. I also have my bench scraper. Again, if you're not a baker, you probably don't have this, and that's totally fine. Just use a butter knife. This is just to help divide, as you'll see. All right, so you're just gonna degas that, just like that. We are going to dump this out. And we've got a beautiful, beautiful bread dough. So let's go ahead and divide and shape this out. So we're going to divide it in sort of thirds. I'm going to roughly mark it before I chop all the way in. And I am going to, if a section is going to have a little bit more dough than the others, I'm going to try and make that the loaf section. Right, just use the bench scraper to cut that. That was a little loud, sorry. Goes in there nice and easy. And we will go ahead and cut this in a second. Just move that over. All right, get some flour here. Keep things from being too sticky. Okay, so we've got our nice, beautiful little loaf here. So to shape this to where it's ready to go in the bread pan, and this almost looks a little small compared to the other two sections. What do you guys think? I don't know, this middle section just looks gigantic. All right, it's gonna be fine. Okay, right, don't worry about it. I need to take my own advice. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of just get this in a little ball, sort of, and we're going to push it into sort of a rectangle. It's okay if this looks a little bit janky, a little bit odd. That's fine. All right. And then let me move this out of the way. Starting from the top, we're just going to begin to roll downward and pinch. Roll and pinch. We're going to bring these sides in and pinch. And we're going to roll and pinch. We're trying to get all the air bubbles out whenever we pinch. Roll and pinch. I felt a few of them there. You can see right there. There's an air bubble. I'm going to just pop that out. Roll and pinch. Right. Roll and pinch. We're almost done here. Roll and pinch these inseams together. And then take the ends and you want to sort of fold them just a little bit inward so we have nice round ends. There you go. So when we flip, you have a nice little loaf, just like that. It's a little sticky. All right, so we just take our loaf pan and we plop it on in, just like that. We're ready to go. And again, I really want to emphasize, is this the best way? Maybe not. Is this perfect? Maybe not. But cooking isn't all what we see on YouTube these days, where it's the best, quickest, easiest, most perfect thing. It's okay to just be okay whenever you cook. It's not going to be the end of the world. It's not going to be too bad. So I think that really looks great. I can see a little piece of bacon in there, so I think everything's going to be just fine, right? I'm going to put this off to the side. And we'll do the next loaf. We'll take this big dough piece right here. This is already in sort of a rectangle for us. Lucky us. Just flatten that a little. Right in the center, and hopefully this is focused, or this camera right here is focused on my bread loaf and not on my chin like it was for the first part of the video. That's going to be a very unfortunate view for you guys later on. I apologize. All right, so we've got a nice rectangle here. Wish I would have put some flour under there. That's okay. What are we going to do? We're going to start at the top. Start at the top. And we're going to roll and pinch. Get these edges, bring those in. We're going to roll and pinch. We're going to roll and pinch. A little sticky. Don't be afraid of flour. Don't be afraid of flour. Don't be afraid. Gonna roll. I see a little bit of bacon in there. Some air bubbles on the top. And pinch. roll, pinch that down, and roll, and pinch. We've got a lot of air bubbles at the end here. You can see them all right there. Made a little squeaky noise. Roll, pinch. You can see another one right here. Well, actually that's another bacon bit. There we go. And we're gonna pinch this last little section, the inseam together here. Sprinkle a little flour under here. All right, again, just take these edges and just sort of fold them in like that, where it looks like kind of a slug. So you've got a nice, pretty booty, I guess, on the bread. All these seams are at the bottom. All right. Looks like we're all pinched and folded. I'm gonna bring my loaf pan right here. Bit more pinching right here, I think. And we're gonna pick this girl up. She's a little sticky. And plop her on in there. Yep, she's a little sticky on top. A little sticky. This was definitely bigger than the two ends. But there we go. Got another loaf in there. Perfect. I'm gonna set this right here, and we're gonna work with our last bit here. I'm gonna flour this. All right. So again, don't listen to this part. This is me doing what I want to, experimenting, and it might not turn out very great, but maybe it'll be fine. Who knows? Who knows? I'm just gonna kind of do what I did with our dough originally and sort of just make this a little circle. Pop that air bubble right there. I'm gonna make it a little circle just like that. Perfect. I'll flip it over a little bit and then sort of pinch all this together. Just like that, and just see what happens. I don't know if this is gonna turn out very well, but I'll have the other two loaves, so I'm not super duper worried about it. Pop any of these air bubbles. There's a lot of them in this loaf. You can really see all the bubbles. But we want to try and get all of those. All right. I don't know, should I just put that in the pan? I think so. It looks pretty. Sort of worried about the bottom, but I don't know. I think we'll be okay, right? We don't see that part. We're not gonna worry. Let me grab my cake pan. Really nice into a nice circle. Now I'm gonna put that right in the middle, just like that. All right, there we go. Beautiful. All right, and we have finished with shaping our loaves. That's all there is to it. So now we are going to cover these again with a towel, put them in a warm place for an hour and a half, and then we are going to go ahead and bake them. Now we are going to bake them at let's see here, 375 for 15 minutes, and then we are going to turn it down to 275 for 15 to 20 minutes. Now I will preheat my oven, maybe when there's about 30 minutes left of the rise time. We want the oven nice and preheated. We want the temperature to be all the same in the oven. Sometimes the oven will lie to you and tell you that it's preheated, but really only some parts of the oven are all preheated. Other parts are still a little cool. So I'm going to preheat the oven nice and early to make sure that it's all one temperature and good to go. So I will see you back in another hour and a half. Be right back. All right, and I'm back. It's been an hour and a half approximately, and our bread has risen. Big reveal. Wow, look at that. This one particularly has done super duper well. If you want to let them go a little bit longer, maybe yours haven't risen this much, that's totally fine. You can do that. I think I've let mine go for 3 to 3.5 hours before when I was a little bit nervous. But we have some beautiful loaves. Now, you don't have to touch them. You don't have to do anything with them. The oven is preheated. We're just gonna throw them in the oven. Again, this is 375 for 15 minutes, and then we are going to lower it to 275 for 15 to 20 minutes more. So I will be back whenever my loaves are done to show you the final result. So see you in about 30 to 35 minutes. All right, you guys, the bread has just come out of the oven. I think it looks beautiful. It shrank, deflated just a little bit on top. But other than that, we've got a great crispy crust on top. So the way that you check and see if it is done is if the bread really easily just plops right out of the pan whenever you turn it onto a baking rack. So we'll try that. And there we go. Easy peasy. It looks like it's all done. Look at that. Let's get the other one out. This as far off to the side as we can. It's just bloop, plop right out. Look at all that steam. Beautiful. Let me flip it back very gently. There we go. Beautiful. And I do have the round pan behind me, and it turned out pretty good. So I can go ahead and flip that one out as well. I just didn't get a separate rack for it. I guess I probably should. So let me get that really fast. So I've got another rack for our round loaf here. I'm just gonna dump this out. And there we go. Look at all that steam. Flip this over. There we go. Looks okay. It looks more like a cake than a piece of bread because of the pan, probably, but I think it still looks great. It'll be interesting to cut. So I am going to switch these because I like the loaves better. Move that in there. So the last thing that we do is we take a little bit of melted butter and we just brush that on top. Of the bread loaves. I don't know, I guess the definition of a little sort of depends on you. I'm using probably a lot, but we worked hard for this bread. Gorgeous, gorgeous. All right, those loaves, I think they look absolutely gorgeous, just shiny with all that butter. They're going to taste so good. Now, the rule in my family is whenever you make bread, I guess I should put some on that round loaf, you have to cut yourself off a piece right out of the oven. That's our rule. You don't wait for it to cool. So I'm going to cut ourselves a piece and we'll have a look at what the inside looks like. All right,